It's 7 on the hour, so you can take it away, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Faraz. Really great to be here again. And yeah, so the idea here was to do the presentation again since the spring because a lot of people who are in the North American time zone were interested in seeing it, but weren't able to attend back in the spring when we had it on South African time. So yeah, so I'm going to do this presentation about wild Galapagos based on my visit to the Galapagos in January of 2020. So a little bit about me. I'm a geographer with a master's in environmental studies. I traveled a lot during the 2 years prior to the pandemic, and as I said, I was in the Galapagos, Ecuador, part of Ecuador, in January 2020. So I'm going to give you first an overview of why the Galapagos archipelago exists, and then I'm going to take you on a journey to some of the islands. The photo here is me and Charles Darwin at the research center named for him on the Isla Santa Cruz. Galapagos Islands are a part of Ecuador. They're named after the giant tortoise, Galápago in ancient Spanish. The islands are located on the equator over a volcanic hotspot, which has created islands for millions of years. There's actually a chain of islands that would have originally been part of the Galapagos, which are now submerged under the sea to the east of the current islands. The islands are located near the boundary of 3 tectonic plates, the Nazca, Cocos, and Pacific plates. Subduction and divergence resulted in the opening of the Earth's crust here. So the Galapagos volcanoes are a direct pipeline to the Earth's hot core. The oldest islands are over 4 million years old, and the youngest are still forming. There's 56 native species of birds. 45 of these are endemic. They can't be found anywhere else in the world. I didn't come close to seeing all of the endemic birds, but I did see lots of them. There's a marine exclusion zone because the sea is the source of the most life here. And this incredibly rich sea life is fed by the currents and the minerals deposited into the sea by the erosion of the volcanic rocks and the upwelling of ocean currents from the Western Pacific. So it's really quite an astounding place. And of course, if you only visit the land portion of the Galapagos, you're completely missing out on what's under the sea. I saw a tiny bit of what's under the sea when I was snorkeling, but not much at all, really. So the confluence of cold and warm ocean currents along with the volcanic deposits leads to incredibly fertile waters. And many of the species that make Galapagos home, such as penguins, giant tortoise, and iguanas, arrived here carried by those currents. There's competing trade winds from North America and South America that also contributed by bringing seeds and insects to the Galapagos archipelago. So these are the islands that I visited that are circled in black. And so we started out in San Cristobal, and so San Cristobal here, then Española, Floriana, Santa Fe, Santa Cruz, Santiago, Genovesa, and then back to Santiago to fly out. So my hopefully next trip to Galapagos will include the western islands of Isabella and Fernandina. So I'll show you a little bit about the volcanism here. Volcanoes here stem from that hotspot in the ocean, under the ocean. The islands were created, isolated in the Pacific Ocean, and after millions of years of erosion, they harbor life, but everything is related to the sea. And the eroding volcanic rock provides minerals to the sea, and in turn, the sea life sustains life on the land. Everything is related to everything else. So this is the Sullivan Bay lava flows, which formed in 1897, 62 years after Darwin was here. So Darwin did not see this lava flow, but it's a living lab of how nature creates habitat. So we were really fortunate enough to be able to walk on this relatively recent lava flow. So 1897 at Sullivan Bay, lava flowed freely across this landscape. So here I'm walking on lava tubes. There's shallow caverns underfoot. You really have to watch where you're stepping. Iron-rich mineral deposits are visible in the cracks, and you just know that when those erode, they're going to color the landscape that rich red-brown color, and that will eventually end up in the sea. Spatter cones here are against the backdrop of much older eroded rock, so that lighter brown rock in the background didn't get covered by the lava flow, and so that's been eroding for possibly 1 million years, but it still has not become colonized by plant life. This is Pahoehoe lava, which was named by the Hawaiians. It's got this very rope-like texture. And after 124 years, there's still virtually no signs of life here. And you can see with the way sunlight reflects off of this lava flow that it's got a lot of silica in it. So sometimes it looks very glassy. The endemic herb malugo was the first plant life that we found. There's really only 2 things that have so far colonized this lava flow. And the only insect, this painted locust. But these big cracks will eventually harbor life because, of course, seeds will blow in. In the background of that picture on the right, you can see up here that brown hillside is starting to be colonized by various plants. And at the bottom, where there's more water available, there's actually green life visible there. So the Brachyceras cactus is also one of the first signs of life. And those two, the malugo herb and the Brachyceras, were the only 2 plants we observed growing on the lava field. So here's that very visible, this is me standing on the lava flow, and of course it's new versus ancient in geologic time. But even the ancient one, that's probably 1 million years old, but as you can see, virtually no plant life is growing there, even yet. So that's a scene of the bay. You know, you can see some green way over there, but really it's an extremely difficult place for any creatures to make a living. And this was the case for all of the islands in the Galápagos. So it took time. Even these old brown hills, which are possibly 1 million to 2 million years old, still have virtually no signs of life. Anyway, our tour officially began on the Isla San Cristobal, and we had views of the wildlife right on the rocky shore of the harbor. A sea lion had just given birth just before we arrived. So this is a little baby that's just figuring out where the nipples are on Mom's belly. And there's Mom looking fairly contented, resting on the rocks. There was a marine iguana there. These are the only iguanas in the world known to swim and feed in the ocean. We will learn more about them later in the presentation. Lava lizards are an endemic species on every one of the islands, and There's different ones on every island. Sally Lightfoot crabs were all over the place. These guys are scavengers and they will eat pretty much anything from dead organic matter to living algae and seaweed and so on. The endemic cacti that live here, almost all the flowers in Galapagos are yellow or white because they're fertilized by carpenter bees that prefer those colors. And those bees arrived in driftwood. The larvae were inside the driftwood. Driftwood was carried across the ocean by a storm from the mainland and washed up here. So these carpenter bees are virtually the only pollinators on Galapagos. Blue-footed booby is our first bird that we saw right in the harbor. And also a brown pelican, a very beautiful large bird. I was really impressed with the texture of the feathers. And you can get really very, very close to these birds and animals. So Darwin's finches were central to Darwin's thinking on the origin of the species. There are 14 species of the tanager family. They're not true finches. Each one has a niche in the ecosystem based on the diet and beak shape. Some are endemic to certain islands. The sharp-billed ground finch is also known as the vampire finch because it drinks the blood of other birds. The cactus finch nests in and eats the pads of cactus trees, and the large ground finch has a massive beak for cracking seeds. The small tree finch has a small beak designed for hunting insects. So every single one of these has its own little niche in the ecosystems. And we'll see some of these birds on the islands we're going to visit today. Here's the large cactus finch. And the very forbidding habitat that they live in. And you can see this would be a very, very difficult place to walk, which is why a sidewalk was constructed through this park. And this is where the HMS Beagle anchored in 1845. And way down here, there's actually a statue of Charles Darwin, which unfortunately I didn't have a chance to, no time to go down and visit that when we were observing birds on the top of the cliff. So here's the little colony of magnificent frigate birds that was atop that cliff on Frigate Hill. And so these frigate birds are flying in and out very, very, very close to where the trail went. And then we said goodbye to Isla San Cristobal, and we were off on our expedition. Next morning, we landed at Espanola Island, which has this amazing white sand beach. Sea lions are all over the place there. And it's a really lovely place for the sea lions to train their youngsters in how to swim, how to make their living off the sea right there. There's a nice shallow beach. And so we did actually observe a couple of pups that were swimming along the beach alongside their mothers. And this little island out here was a fabulous place for snorkeling. Just wonderful. There's 4 species of mockingbirds. So these are the Galapagos mockingbirds of Espanola. 4 species of mockingbirds live in Galapagos, and the Espanola is the biggest and most fearless. We observed that they were often running among the sea lions on the beach to pick up whatever the waves brought in. But there's about only 250 of these Floriana mockingbirds remaining. It's one of the world's rarest birds. And here we have the Galapagos oystercatcher. It's endemic. Only about 200 breeding pairs remain, and it forages along the rocky shores and beaches. And here's the Espanola marine iguana, really colorful in the breeding season. These guys are endemic to Galápagos. And the theory of how they got to Galapagos from mainland South America is that they were probably swept out to sea on weedy rafts from the mainland. And they evolved to feed on algae and seaweed in the shallow seas around Galapagos. And because there was really, you know, in that volcanic landscape, there was nothing to eat on land. So when they arrived in Galapagos, they found that they had to figure out how to eat the seaweed in the bays and coves. But of course, in eating seaweed, they're eating a lot of salt. So how they deal with that is they rid their bodies of the excess salt by sneezing it out from a special gland that has evolved in the nose. It's fascinating stuff. So as I said, marine iguanas develop these breeding colors in breeding season. So very Christmassy. This is a hiking trail. As you can see, it's extremely rocky and not for the faint of heart, but if you've got hiking poles, it's quite manageable. So we're off here on a visit to the breeding grounds of the waved albatross. And top left there, you can see a little sign that says, "Stop, do not go past this point." And there's an egg been left right there. That's obviously an egg that's not going to develop. But the waved albatrosses nest all over Espanola Island. On the way, we saw this Darwin's ground finch. A lot of these little tanagers are really inconspicuous, and but they hop around on the ground, pecking at whatever they can find. Lava lizards on Espanola, very colorful creatures. And here's the Galapagos waved albatross. This Espanola Island is the only place in the world where they breed. So we observed a number of juveniles preparing to fledge, but all the adults had left when we were on the scene, and we really only had a few of the very last chicks that were almost fledged and getting ready to leave themselves. So the waved albatrosses hang out among the rocks. They weigh up to 4.9 kilos. They're only found here on Espanola Island during the breeding season from April to December. And we saw the last chicks to fledge in mid-January. And once they fledge, the young go out to sea for possibly 5 years until they are old enough to mate when they return to the island. And so these are the juveniles that are preparing to go out to sea. Albatross chicks get fed this diet from the parents. It's full of sort of oily fish, and so they gain a ton of weight. And so for the last few weeks, when they're alone on the island, they're just, they don't get fed. They're just growing out their new feathers, and they live off their fat until they are ready to fly. And waved albatrosses love this cliff because they can launch themselves right into the wind and gain altitude quickly. Layers of volcanic rock here are eroding into the sea, making a really perfect habitat for a lot of seabirds. And there's a blue-footed booby there with a marine iguana and a couple of Sally lightfoot crabs on this big rock. Boobies have no natural predators here, so they spend a lot of time on the ground. And here's the Galapagos brown pelican. It's an endemic subspecies of pelican found nowhere else but here. And they are wonderful to watch. They just dive like missiles into the water when they're fishing. They scoop up the fish and a lot of water in their huge gular sac, and they discharge the water before swallowing the fish whole. And here we have a Nazca booby, another really cool bird. We saw a lot of mating behavior. These guys are amazing flyers and superb fishers. They just dive really fast into the water. They're extraordinarily streamlined. Another bird that really looks like a guided missile when it goes into the water. These guys are not endemic, but they are common all over the Pacific coast of South America. But they nest principally in Galápagos on Española and Genovesa Islands. So here's a couple of them that are engaging in courtship behavior. They have this little dance going on, and they clack their beaks together. So they're very fun to watch. Nazca booby and its chick, they lay 2 eggs, but the second one is insurance. If it hatches, the second one is not generally fed. It's a practice known as obligate siblicide. And so the second one really is only fed if something happens to the first one. And the Nazca boobies share their environment with some pretty intimidating and noisy and inconsiderate neighbors. And this sea lion is climbing up the so-called steps where I'm actually going to walk down in a few minutes. And we have an incredibly wild environment here. These blowholes kept the entire cliff face constantly damp and misty. And you could actually set your watch by the timing of these blowholes. Every time a big wave came in, you get this immense, powerful fountain of mist coming up through those holes. And yeah, it's just a really beautiful and wild landscape. This is Darwin's vegetarian finch. It's endemic here. It's a plant eater, eats buds and leaves, flowers, fruit, and the cambium layer of twigs. And it's a landscape that is pretty inhospitable for humans. You could easily twist your ankle there if you're not careful. So here we have a Galapagos lava heron, a juvenile. It's an endemic species, lives in and on the volcanic rocks near the shoreline. It eats small crabs, insects, and small fish. The Galapagos ground dove is an endemic pigeon-like bird that rarely flies. It's got a near threatened conservation status. These guys spend most of their time on the ground. And if their nest is threatened, they'll fake a broken wing and lead you away, just like killdeers do here in Ontario. Isla Floriana was our next stop the following day. And this is Punta Cormorant, really fragile cliffs, very iron-rich soil. And you can see, we can imagine in a storm, high seas would just be coming and taking that cliff away bit by bit. So atop of those cliffs is the breeding grounds for the blue-footed boobies. These ground nesters do have no natural predators here, and so they feel very comfortable just hanging out on the top of those cliffs. Their name apparently comes from the Spanish word for clown or fool, which is bobo. And so, as you can see, they're pretty funny looking. The males display their blue feet. The bluer, the better. It shows breeding health and fishing prowess. And I kind of liked how the blueness of the feet reflected on the lower belly of these guys. They're just really pretty bird. They're very awkward on land, but very eager to show off the blueness of their feet. They would do this high stepping thing, lifting the feet to show the females nearby. And there we have a little courtship happening. And again, these eroding cliffs are sending iron-rich deposits into the sea, which will of course, feed the sea life that's immensely rich in the water. So we have the little flycatchers here that are endemic, common all over Galapagos, threatened by habitat degradation, introduced diseases, and mammalian pests such as mice and rats. They nest in cavities, which is a problem. There's no woodpeckers in Galapagos, so nothing to make holes in trees. So we're on our way now inland to the Punta Cormorant Lagoon, which is a brackish body of water inland on Isla Floriana. Not far from the sea, but just far enough. So here we have the Galapagos American flamingo, which is an endemic variant. It's endemic and endangered. There's less than 350 individuals remaining. These are filter feeders in saltwater lagoons near the sea. They mainly eat brine shrimp that give the birds their color. And there's been a restoration program here on Floriana that's been removing invasive species which threaten breeding success. So it's kind of nice. The Galapagos parks people really have their fingers entirely on restoring habitats and bringing back species that are really threatened. This was a juvenile American flamingo that was right beside the end of the trail. So this guy was about, maybe 6 feet away from me. And so, you got to be really quiet there to enjoy wildlife that's up that close to you. But you can see this guy is quite pale. So it obviously takes quite some time before they get to eat enough of the brine shrimp to give them their beautiful pink color. And you can see water dripping as they release what they've collected along with the brine shrimp. Absolutely beautiful birds in a beautiful setting. There's a guy stretching his wings. A couple more. We also saw there the Galapagos white-cheeked pin-tailed duck, an endemic subspecies that lives only here. These guys occasionally fly to other islands, but not often. They like brackish lakes, mangrove swamps, and estuaries. It's one of the prettiest ducks I've ever seen anywhere, and we only saw the one pair. The beach midden shows a variety of foods that are available. We've got starfish, sea urchins, green sea turtles, and many other critters that have been eaten here on the beach. And that is the beach. Along the other side of the beach, I saw this cliff face with all these layers that are eroding out. You can really see the volcanic layers there. And so those ash layers have varying consistencies and so on. So you get the erosion showing the actual age of the island. And one day, of course, it's going to disappear right back into the sea. Sally Lightfoot crabs are all over the place there. I followed this one along the beach for a while. The colors are just astounding. And then we went to Champion Islet, so an islet nearby, and we didn't land, but we toured around in the Zodiac boats. This is the Champion Islet lava heron. As you can see, is very well camouflaged. There's another one right in the middle. If you can't see it, I'll highlight it right there. They're astoundingly well camouflaged and very, very hard to spot. And they like eating little small baby crabs. Red-billed tropic birds were nesting there. These guys are remarkable for their very long tails, but of course they're really challenging to photograph well under this ultra bright equatorial sun. I did get a few pictures. but none of them are really that great. These guys are not endemic to Galapagos. It's a juvenile right here. They live all over the tropics and they breed at any time of the year and lay just one egg. The volcanic cliffs here offer superb sheltered nesting sites because of all the holes. And there's one on one of the ledges. We also saw brown knotty terns. They're quite common, not endangered, and they love to nest in lava tubes and other kinds of volcanic cavities. They will lay one egg per year, and they're famous for sitting on the heads of pelicans waiting to steal their fish. They'll scoop fish also right out of the sea when the fish come close to the surface. I have a picture later on of them doing that. And lava tubes, of course, make the perfect nesting sites. So yeah, Champion Island is pretty perfect for a lot of species to call home. And there's cactus trees there that grow pretty tall. That cliff face that's eroding into the sea, lots of cactus on the top of the cliff, along with Palo Santo incense trees further up. Yeah, but anywhere here, life is nowhere without the sea. It's completely interconnected. Here we are in Post Office Bay on Floriana Island, and it's called Post Office Bay because there's a mailbox there where you can deposit a postcard. No stamps needed. So this has been going on for a couple of centuries, that if you wanted to leave a letter there, another ship coming along, if someone there was going to be going to your hometown, they would take the letter with them. So we went through all the letters in the box and took back with us postcards that we could deliver in person. And that was the key. You had to be able to deliver them in person to make the system work. A hermit crab on the beach on that island, kind of a neat thing to see. I'd never seen one before. And Darwin's vegetarian finch. This guy was hanging around and finding lots of things to eat in and among the rocks and in the sand. Galapagos yellow warbler. I only got one shot at taking photograph of this. Unfortunately, the focus was not great, but it's a record of this endemic subspecies of common yellow warbler found all over the Americas. There's slight differences in the warbler species found on each island in the Galapagos. And here's another Galapagos brown pelican on the beach there. And those colors were actually real. That blueness of the face was stunning to see. And he let me get quite close. I could walk right by him. I mean, you're not supposed to go right up to the wildlife, but if you have to walk by, as I did from a couple of feet away, you really don't disturb them much. The birds and animals in Galapagos are really not afraid of humans. Pelicans are expert fishers, of course, also like guided missiles entering the water, and that wingspan is absolutely huge. And here we have a gray-hooded gull, lovely little gull, and very happy to see this guy. And I did see nest evidence of green sea turtles along this beach, but stupidly did not take a photograph. Oh well. But here we are getting towards the end of the day on that island, and so we say goodbye to Isla Floriana. Next day, we're at the Charles Darwin Research Station on Santa Cruz. So Darwin lived from 1809 to 1882, and he visited Galapagos for 6 weeks in 1835 when he was 26 years old. He published On the Origin of Species in 1859 when he was 50 years old. He died in 1882, age 73, and had 10 children of his own. So here we are at the research station, which is named for Darwin, and here they are breeding the Galapagos giant tortoise. And they are ecosystem engineers, much like the role of elephants in Africa. They're seed dispersers. They keep plant growth in check, and they create microhabitats for other species. So sailors in the whaling area took tortoises to eat aboard ship. Some islands lost their tortoises entirely, and other species were mixed up on other islands. So essentially, each island in Galapagos had its own variant of the giant tortoises. So today, the breeding program at the Darwin Research Station carefully matches the genetics to repopulate islands with their endemic tortoises. And here's Diego from Española. And the juveniles have one job, to eat and grow as much as they can so that they can be relocated back to the island where they came from. Yeah, here's Diego. He was about 100 years old, and last year he was in the news, or 2 years ago now, when he retired from the breeding program. He fathered over 800 progeny to reestablish his species on Española. And we saw a lot of those little tortoises growing up. We went to the sanctuary for wild Galapagos tortoises in the highlands of Santa Cruz. And here we are in the Scalacea forest. So those trees, those are the giant dandelions that we're walking through. And they grow only in Galapagos. So here's one of these big guys here. They're really much bigger than your coffee table. And they love to hang out in the warm pools of volcanic mud. And this guy's totally intent on giving me the side eye. And here he is coming out of the water. So these guys are the gardeners of Galapagos Islands, and they create habitat for hundreds of other species. On the same island, the Santa Cruz terrestrial iguana. So here there are iguanas that are land dwellers, not sea dwellers. And so they are often bigger and more colorful than the marine iguanas. Here's the Galapagos mockingbird of Isla Santa Cruz. Very cooperative photography subject here. And here's the vegetarian finch of Isla Santa Cruz. And here we are on South Plaza Island. This is the oldest Galapagos island, 4 million years old. And the colors were just amazing in this landscape. But the whole island is crumbling and slowly eroding into the sea, and one day it will disappear beneath the waves. Here we saw magnificent frigate birds. These guys are not endemic to Galapagos, but they are kleptoparasites, pirate birds. They steal from other seabirds. They can stay airborne for days, and they do not have waterproof feathers. So the only way for them to make a living is to actually steal from other birds. They will sometimes grab a booby in midair and hold it upside down and shake it until it throws up its meal. And the frigate birds will then swoop down and catch that fish right out of the air. They have the proportionally greatest wingspan of any living bird. And the red gular sac of this guy tells you that it's a male. This is a juvenile frigate bird that just happened to be sitting on a rock beside our landing spot. And there he is. And we're going to have more about frigate birds later in the presentation. This is the Galapagos lava gull, the rarest gull in the world, endemic to Galapagos and found only here. Population is estimated at 300 to 600 individuals. It's a vulnerable species that nests in scrapes on the ground, and it's predated by frigate birds, other gulls, owls, and introduced predators like rats and mice. So on a lot of the Galapagos Islands, the national parks have programs to catch the rats and mice. There's another one striding along. And here's a juvenile lava gull. Another juvenile there. The lava gulls are pretty easy to see on South Plaza Island. They let you get reasonably close to them. They're not very afraid. They're really, really striking birds with this red mouth. A couple more juveniles. And if a lot of these photographs look kind of grayed out and misty, it's because it was in fact very misty there, and it was quite chilly as well, so reminded me more of Newfoundland than an equatorial tropical island. So this bird is Galapagos swallow-tailed gull. Also very dramatic with that red ring around the eye. And here's a juvenile swallowtail gull. As you can see, they nest in scrapes right on the ground. So these guys are found throughout the archipelago. They're endemic to Galapagos, but do migrate to the western coast of South America during the breeding season. They're the world's only fully nocturnal gull, and they feed at night on squid and fish that surface to find plankton. These guys mate for life and collectively build nests on the ground in their community. Each pair lays one egg, and they raise the single chick together. A few more shots of the swallowtail gull. And here's this cliff side on the high side of the island, which is amazing for nesting colonies of gulls and other birds. Swallowtail gulls are strikingly well adapted to their surroundings with their coloration. So they've got red, white, and gray, and a little black, and all of these colors fit right in that landscape. South Plaza Island is also famous for its iguanas. It has both terrestrial iguanas and marine. This one is terrestrial. Really striking yellow on that one. And the marine iguanas of South Plaza are this lovely coal black color. And there's hybrids that resulted from the mating of marine and terrestrial iguanas. And scientists think that they're likely sterile. They won't produce offspring. And here we have a Darwin's cactus finch in the rain. Terrible photographs, my apologies. But this is about the best you get when this misty rain rolls in. South Plaza Island lava lizard here. Another one, a little bit different color. So there's two sides to South Plaza Island, the steep cliffs on one side and a gentle slope on the other, really echoing the shape of the volcano that was here long ago that created this land. And of course, more weather reminiscent of the North Atlantic. But the sea lion doesn't mind a bit, just resting among the vegetation on the land. And then we said goodbye to South Plaza Island, making our way ashore the next day to Isla Santa Fe. And one of our first sightings here, the Galápagos hawk, one of the rarest hawks in the world. Highly endangered, only about 600 remaining, very, very sensitive to disturbance. But you can see this fantastic camouflage. It makes this bird almost impossible to see against that cactus. Galapagos hawk feeds on insects, centipedes, rodents, small reptiles, young tortoise, sea turtles, and iguanas. These hawks practice polyandry. Each female breeds with up to 7 males, all of which help to raise the young. We have a brown pelican here, beautiful brown against those turquoise waters. And the lava heron right in the middle of the picture, right there, is again almost invisible. But it's out shopping for small crabs. It's not going to go for the adult Sally Lightfoot crabs. They are much more formidable foes, but the lava heron will be looking for juvenile crabs, which are a tasty mouthful. Sea lion pups are born on the shorelines here, but they're often prey for sharks in this bay, so the mothers are usually keeping a good eye out when these little ones go swimming. And here we are in our zodiacs. We've got a squadron of manta rays is passing underneath us, and that was absolutely really impressive to see. And there we say goodbye to that island. But we've got a hiking trail actually to come. So this is the Isla Santa Fe hiking trail that goes through the vulnerable cactus forest. And sea lions and Galapagos ground doves coexist here with the iguanas in this cactus forest. And the baby cacti growing in amongst the rocks here is a very, very positive sign for the future of this ancient forest. Santa Fe land iguana here. You have to be very careful where you place your feet. The photo on the left, there is an iguana right there among the rocks. And as you can see, it's basically the same color as the rocks. So you could step on these guys if you weren't really paying attention to where you step. Here's one draped over a nice hot rock. They like to absorb the sunlight and absorb the heat from the rock. That gives them the energy they need to move. We found this chunk of coral inland, actually on this hillside, right about in here. Big chunk of coral sitting there. That's direct evidence of plate tectonics in action, because how else would a piece of coral get up there on the hillside? And looking down through the cactus forest and the Palo Santo incest trees down to the spiny trees below. And then had a wonderful experience here with the Galapagos mockingbirds of the spiny bush trees here on Santa Fe. This juvenile is begging from its parent, and he or she is saying, "No way, kid, you go find your own food. There's no way I'm going to be feeding you anymore." But the youngster is still persisting. And then all of a sudden, another one comes in. And that was quite an amazing sighting. This is my favorite photograph of the whole trip. So love this one. Next, we had Isla Santiago, which is also called sombrero chino, Chinese hat, for obvious reasons. And this was the only place we saw penguins that were swimming very, very fast under the water. The penguins move from this island over to Isabella Island that we did not get to. And they move there because in the summertime, the water, or a certain time of year anyway, there's really no summer, no winter there, but a certain time of year, the cold currents move and the penguins like to follow the cold. So we did see them, a couple of them here, swimming very fast under the water. But also here, it's a landscape of amazing eroded volcanic rock. We've got some sand here in amongst the rock, but not a lot. Sally Lightfoot crabs were all over the place here along the shore, and they're munching tiny, tiny bits of algae that are clinging to the rocks. And so our challenge as photographers on this trip was to try and capture Sally Lightfoot crabs with the moving water in this environment. And there's the cone of the Chinese hat, the old volcanic cone up in the center of the island. And that cone is eroding, and you can also see little bits of green on this slope. So, you know, a million years, or maybe 2 million years, you've got these little bits of green that are finally appearing on the slopes of this island. And more coral above the sea level is showing, again, more evidence of plate tectonics. There's obviously uplift going on here. Just as the islands are eroding, they're also sometimes being uplifted above previous sea levels. And here we've got marine iguanas of Isla Santiago, and lava lizard. And there's a wonderful tuff cone in the background with a brown pelican in the foreground. And you can see there that red-green vegetation is taking over the lower slopes that are eroded enough to support life. But even so, just so much of that landscape is absolutely inhospitable. And again, we were searching for the Galapagos penguins, which do make this island home, but none of them were on the land in a place where we could see and photograph them. But the lava tubes here were fine nesting habitat for the penguins, shady and a bit safer from predators. But it's an environment full of nooks and crannies. Broken lava tubes dot the landscape. But yeah, sadly for us, most of the penguins had moved to Isabella Island, where the water is colder at this time of year. But here's a Galapagos penguin photograph borrowed from eBird. Endemic to Galapagos. It's an endangered species. It's the only penguin in the world that breeds north of the equator. It's the second smallest species of penguin on Earth. The smallest one is the little blue penguin that nests in, or calls New Zealand, South Island of New Zealand and southern Australia home. Yeah. So Galapagos penguin is not quite as small as the little blue. Anyway, population of about 800 breeding pairs remain, and it nests on the shores in the Galapagos where the ocean currents bring cold water. So next time I go to Galapagos, looking forward to going to Isabella, where I can actually see penguins on shore nesting. And ubiquitous sea lions, of course, finding any comfortable spot where they can nap and rest during the day. But you got to beware of the curious sea lion pups. There was a beachmaster male was roving up and down this shoreline. He was swimming in the water, and if he had seen this happening, he would have come over and given our two photographers here what for. But this little pup was intensely curious. So we said goodbye to Sombrero Chino, and we're on our way back to the ship, but a surprise awaits. In the water, I spotted this commotion, and turned out to be a bait ball. So underneath the water, possibly whales or dolphins or some other kind of marine predator is corralling all the fish into this ball, and they're trying to jump out of the water to escape being eaten. And of course, they're going to be picked off by the brown knotty terns, and they're just jumping right up out of the water to meet the mouths of the birds. So this was a very, very fun thing to see. And there's that lovely, lovely turquoise water, which you see so often in Galapagos. And here it's Sullivan Bay. So Sullivan Bay is where there were the lava flows that I showed at the beginning of the presentation. Old and newer lava flows juxtaposed. Lots of fun little inlets that are just brilliant habitat for all kinds of species, but of course they all make their living from the sea. A completely inhospitable environment, yet many creatures do survive. There's a lava heron. It's a nesting Galapagos hawk, and she's waiting for one of her mates to bring her food. She looks most anxious. We did not see chicks or eggs, but it's possible that they're down in the nest where we can't see them from this vantage point. So these photographs were taken not from land, but from Zodiac. And there she is stretching. Brown pelican in this environment, also just hanging out, just resting. And yeah, everybody's making a living there because of the incredible richness of the sea, not because of what the land can provide. And it's the end of another fascinating day. Next up is the Isla Genovesa, a very deep sunken caldera. This island is actually a crescent shape. One side of the caldera has fallen into the sea, leaving access to a deep water port in the middle of what used to be the caldera of the volcano. So here's inside the partially collapsed caldera, 1 million seabirds, and that million is not an exaggeration. Actually, we had red-footed boobies. These are the dark morph guys, just sitting in the incest trees, some of them calling for a mate and others nesting. So the red-footed boobies are the smallest of the booby bird family. They nest in these Palo Santo incest trees and in mangroves. They hunt for flying fish, and they have a remarkable flight speed. They have jointed fingers in their webbed feet that allow them to perch in trees and grasp sticks. And there's also a white morph, and the brown and white morphs breed interchangeably. And here's some preening and displaying behavior. This guy is very, very photogenic. I'm probably standing about 5 feet from this bird, and he's not even blinking an eye. Here's the white morph. absolutely beautiful bird. Look at that blue beak with the pink towards the face, red feet, and the white body. Just a gorgeous, gorgeous bird. And here's a pair, the brown and the white, setting up shop here, going to make a nest. And this is a juvenile that does not yet have its red feet. And they pass each other sticks to form part of their courtship behavior. Magnificent frigate birds also nest here on Genovesa. And this is a female frigate bird. Here's a juvenile. Another shot of the juvenile. Male here has his gular sac inflated. They will inflate that thing right the way out and drum on it with their beak to attract the attention of females. And they share the habitat, the frigate birds and the boobies. So sometimes it's a little conflict. This guy is displaying and drumming for a mate. And there's competition among those males. They're always trying to chase the other ones off from their territory. And displaying, giving a great big huge stretch, saying, this is my place, get out of here. And there's a booby who's about to be chased away. So this guy's really got his pouch inflated, and as I said, he sometimes will be drumming on the inflated pouch. They can't fish for themselves. Their feathers are not waterproof, and as I mentioned before, sometimes they'll catch a booby and hold it upside down until it disgorges the fish. Frigate birds are therefore kleptoparasites, thriving and surviving through thievery. Galapagos lava heron of Genovesa, and right on the beach near the mangrove forest there, this guy was very cooperative for photographs. You can see remains on the beach at Genovesa of the whale industry that was there a couple of hundred years ago. And Nazca boobies also nest there, and here's a nice little fluffy chick, rather dirty one up at the top right. And swallow-tailed gulls nest there, these little scrapes on the ground, little tiny pieces of coral to actually comprise the nest. Just a really, really beautiful gull, this guy. And yeah, you can see an egg there underneath that adult, right down there, and you see it's virtually the same colors as the stones and bits of coral that they're using for the nest material. Here's a lava gull, and this guy really has this pinky gray plumage, just quite gorgeous here. Here we are in the mangrove forest. We're wading in this fairly shallow, warm water and observing what we can see here. Red-footed boobies nesting among the mangroves. There's a red-footed booby chick. It's the cutest thing ever with all this white down. Galapagos yellow-crowned night heron right here in this crevice in the rock. And here he is. So this is an endemic variant of the yellow-crowned night herons that we see elsewhere in the world. These guys are smaller. Yeah, so even in Galapagos it's quite rare. Endemic to here, as I said. Frequents the volcanic rocks near the shore and likes hanging out near the mangrove forests. And so that is the environment of the beach at Genovesa Island. And as you walk along that inlet, you're pretty much surrounded by mangrove forest there. The crumbling caldera wall was really spectacular. It's the only place where Galapagos fur seals exist. It's another endemic, and we just saw a few of them. And they are laying here. Try and pick out a couple. There's one there, and there's one up there. Very difficult to see, but they're there. And you wonder how they climb up that high, but they do. Yeah, so there's two of them there. Little fur seals that are quite small, but this is where they live. So there's a whole bunch of them there, right in the center. There's 3 or 4 of them right there. So this is the only place in the world. Can you spot the yellow-crowned night heron right there? And the fur seal there. So there's some close-ups of that Galapagos yellow-crowned night heron. Beautiful bird. So we are inside the caldera wall, which is crumbling away, of course, and in the distance over here, we have Prince Philip's steps, and so we are going up those steps, and we're going to go for a hike up to the top. So it's named for Prince Philip, who visited here back in the 1950s. So these steps are really, really steep, and it's the only way to get up onto the plateau seabird colony. There's a red-billed tropic bird nesting halfway up the steps, and on the top, this is the western cliff top of Isla Genovesa. Nazca boobies are nesting, lots of little babies up here. And the parents are very attentive, grooming them. Swallowtail gulls also up there, being absolutely beautiful on the cliff top. Red-footed booby. And here's the trail that goes through the plateau. There's hundreds of Nazca boobies, frigate birds, and red-footed boobies up here. There's a frigate bird there, a male, a juvenile, adult female. This is habitat for the Galapagos short-eared owl. We didn't find one in that crack, but they are there. And these Palo Santo incense trees are growing in the slightest crevices in this really, really inhospitable rocky land. Nice little juvenile Nazca booby, red-footed, lovely face on these birds. And here's these webbed feet with the jointed toes that allow them to grasp the tree branches. And this is the eastern cliff top of Genovesa. Again, extremely inhospitable environment, but nevertheless, the birds are finding it home. But this is what we're walking through. Again, the mockingbirds, Galapagos mockingbirds are here, and this one is scavenging what looks like a frigate bird that has died. And we've got nesting and mating behaviors from all of these boobies. Absolutely nesting season there. But we are there looking for the short-eared owls, really hoping to see them in the environment. And we go through lots and lots of trees. We find red-billed tropic birds in burrows under the lava. There's a juvenile tropic bird in a burrow. And Nazca boobies are flying over us all the time, heading out to sea. Just quite astounding to see them so close and doing all this behavior, which is absolutely natural. So that habitat in that long crevice is also a place that you might see short-eared owls, and we did find one there. So this is a Galapagos endemic, a subspecies of the worldwide short-eared owl, smaller and darker than his mainland cousins, nests on the ground under bushes or in crevices, has 2 to 4 offspring per year, not endangered, but elusive nonetheless. These owls have learned the art of cunning concealment. They've learned to hunt during the day to steal eggs and to catch storm petrels as they exit or enter their lava tube nests. So very cunning these owls are. And we observed this guy sleeping for quite some time, and eventually he was starting to wake up. Galapagos short-eared owl also feeds nocturnally on rats, mice, lizards, and other birds. And here he is waking up and being a little bit active. And then we got a good look at those golden eyes. And that is the end of my presentation. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Elizabeth, for that wonderful presentation. There we go. All right, so yes, I believe that there are some questions in the chat. Let me scroll up. First of all, the lava flow, the big lava flow that you started off your presentation on. Which island is that lava flow on?
It's a place called Sullivan Bay. Name of the island, I'm sorry, that escapes me, but it's Sullivan Bay. You can look that up.
Okay, I'll check it out right now. Also, how old is a lava flow?
So that lava flow we walked on was 124 years old. Well, 125 now.
Ah,
Yeah.
it's Sullivan Bay, right?
Yeah, Sullivan Bay.
Okay, it's on the eastern coast of Santiago Island.
There you go. Yeah.
Thank you, Google. What time of year? Yes. So your visit was in January 2020, right?
Correct. Yeah.
How many bird species do the Galapagos Islands have?
So I did have that at the very beginning of the presentation. I could go back and look what I said. Let me see. 56 native species of birds, and 45 of these are endemic.
There we go.
Yeah.
In retrospect, they're really easy numbers to remember, 56
Right.
and 45. Okay. Can you get relatively close to the birds?
You absolutely can, yes. You know, they haven't been hunted for quite some time, so there's really not much fear. I mean, some of the ground nesting ones, if you walk too close to them, they will walk away. But also the Ecuadorian parks people that look after the Galapagos, they control everything. They control where you walk. There are posts in the ground, you know, to mark your trail, and so you don't vary from where you're supposed to walk. You just keep on that straight and narrow. And but the birds are, you know, very close to that trail on both sides. So you get to see lots, and sometimes the birds are walking on your trail with you. Yeah, but the like you can't just go to the Galapagos and wander around on your own. You have to go with guides.
Yeah.
And the guides are all people that grew up in Galapagos and have been schooled there and trained there. So really, really knowledgeable people.
Okay, nice. I have a question from a photographer's standpoint. Because like given that the birds are also tame, what kind of gear do you think a bird photographer would walk with?
Well, I mean, there were photographers that came with the giant long lenses and tripods and things, but uh, I mean, as a pretty much amateur photographer myself, I found it important to bring gear which is fairly lightweight
Yeah,
because you're hiking on some really difficult terrain.
uneven
So,
terrain. Yeah.
yeah, so I had my Sony bridge camera, which has a lens that goes from 24 to 600, and I had a good time with that. Some people on the trip I was on had much bigger cameras, and big long lenses, and quite frankly, I think they were struggling to haul that gear with them on some of the trails that we were on.
I can imagine. Another question. Do any of the birds, like the frigate bird, attack people?
No,
Not at all.
no.
Is there any program for eradicating rats and mice? If so, has there been any progress?
I believe there is. Like, there's some. Uh, the Ecuadorian parks people are absolutely completely focused on conservation there. So um, I don't have any details as to what those programs are or how it's been implemented, but it's been a big concern in some areas.
Hmm.
So they want those invasive species gone, and they're going to a lot of trouble to eradicate invasive species.
I think it's necessary. I mean,
Yeah,
once the species are gone, there's no bringing them back.
yeah, that's right. And when you arrive in Galapagos, you have to clean your boots and walk through a disinfecting tray and things like that. Like they
Yeah,
don't want you bringing little seeds from somewhere else.
yeah, of course. I think the problem of invasive plant species is something that's really overlooked across the world. Let's see. Endemic birds. Well, we know it's 45 endemic birds, right?
Yeah.
Not going to forget that again. Um, if you were to take the same trip again, is there anything you would do differently? Perhaps as a tip for future visitors to the Galapagos.
So I was there in January. Now I have a friend of mine who is a geography professor at the University of Toronto, and she actually leads student trips to Galapagos and has been there 13 times. And she says, yes, visit the Galapagos as often as you possibly can. Go in different seasons, go to different places, right? I went to all these islands in Eastern Galapagos, but next time I go, it'll be Western. And maybe I go back to Eastern again in a different season, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah. So you would see different things in different seasons.
interesting. Was there any piece of equipment or any kind of piece of clothing or anything that you think you would carry in subsequent visits as opposed to what you went with?
Well, I was pretty well equipped when I went. I mean, I had my lightweight camera gear, I had binoculars, I had hiking poles, um, uh, stout hiking shoes, or hiking boots. Because everywhere you go, you're walking on these volcanic rocks. There's pretty much no such thing as a flat footpath in Galapagos.
Yeah, yeah. I saw that from your pictures.
Hmm.
Are visitors allowed on the islands at night?
And I don't think so. Um,
Okay.
I mean, there's a couple of islands where there's actually settlements.
Hmm.
And so, if you're in those towns, obviously you can go places at night. But to be out in the parks, in the wild landscapes, no, I don't think so. Because everywhere you go, you've got to be guided. You know,
Yeah,
you can't say just roll up at Sullivan Bay and expect to walk that lava flow at night. Nope,
yeah.
not going to happen.
Well, that's good information. Because yeah, if I'd visit, I want to do that. You know, I could just imagine how majestic these areas are at night, you know, with all of the night sky and everything, no light pollution. It'd be pure magic.
Well, I mean, if you're visiting the islands, you're going to be sleeping on a boat.
Yeah,
So, um, you can certainly be on your boat fairly close to shore at night.
yeah.
But I'll tell you, you don't see much unless the moon is out. You don't see much.
Yeah, because the boat is going to have some level of light. And also, I'm thinking from a photography perspective, because I'm thinking, well, I want to take a long exposure of the beach at night, and the boat is there and the boat is rocking. It may not turn out too well.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Question.
everywhere you go, you're guided, and
Yeah.
it's very carefully supervised.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think with reason, of course.
yeah,
You know, you hear about things in Antarctica and so many tourists passing through there, and then you got garbage and trails, and I'm saying trails like they're trails, but you know, you would see garbage and human trash there, which I assume would not be the case on Galapagos because it's so strictly
yeah,
supervised. Yeah.
yeah.
Let's see. Another question. Any changes, comments on conservation management observed? Um, I'm not sure if you'd like to clarify that question, Jalaluddin. Um, and there's another question. Comments on tourism impacts. I'm assuming this is if if there's like a high level of negative impact from a high level of tourism.
Well,
I'll see.
like I said, the tourism is very carefully regulated there, and you can't just fly in there and rent a boat and go anywhere you want. Everywhere you go, that is part of the park, which is most of Galapagos, is very strictly regulated. And so I think that they probably have limits on the number of visitors who can come to certain places. It's not
Yeah,
going to be unlimited. It's going to be
yeah,
carefully controlled. But I mean, those sorts of questions, I think, um, I would encourage people to go to the website for the Galapagos Parks system and investigate further about what's going on there.
absolutely. Another question. You mentioned that one of the bird species is endangered now because it dwells in crevices made by woodpeckers, but there are no woodpeckers on the island. Were there woodpeckers before and they went extinct, or a different bird that made crevices?
No, there's no woodpeckers. At least that's the information that I was given. There's no
Yeah,
woodpeckers there. So it would, those little flycatchers would have to have the ability to find holes that have arisen for other reasons. You
I
know,
wonder, yeah, like where did the holes come from? You know, are they naturally occurring crevices or something like that?
yeah.
Yeah. Um, Question, tips, if you have any, do you have any tips on visiting to save cost or to get the best experiences?
Hmm. Um, I don't really. I mean, there's lots of tour companies you can go with. I happen to go with National Geographic, which is probably among the most expensive, but it was well worth it because we had a ratio of guides to um, uh, visitors on the trip that was like unbelievably small. I think it was like 1 to 5 or something like that. So, and sometimes I found myself alone with one of the guides, and
Yeah,
we also had photographic experts from National Geographic on the trip with us. So that was pretty cool. And
that sounds like it.
yeah, yeah,
Sounds really, really cool.
yeah.
What are useful resources, references to read? I'm assuming the Galapagos Parks websites.
Yes, I mean, there's a ton of books about Galapagos. You know, you could start with Darwin's book about his visit to Galapagos, right? And there's lots and lots and lots of things been written about Galapagos. Lots of
Hmm.
websites. Every tour company has a website about their Galapagos tours. So
Yeah.
lots of things. I guess, you know, going back to the question about tips for visitors, um, uh, I suppose the first thing you want to answer for yourself is what's your budget? How much do you have to spend? And then judge accordingly what tour company you would go with and what your
Hmm.
comfort level is with various kinds of vessels that might be available. Yeah.
Yeah. Another question. You have, I don't know, I can't remember the last time we got so many questions for webinar, but we have a lot. Um, how can we support conservation and local community development on these islands?
So actually, National Geographic and Lindblad Explorers, Lindblad Expeditions, sorry, they sponsor a school for naturalists in Galapagos, and we actually visited that school, and it's an amazing place. So, you know, if you Google Galapagos Environmental School, you'll probably find it. I can't remember the exact name of that school, but it's an amazing place. And so they take kids that are growing up in Galapagos, and like you can't just move there. There's very, very strict rules about who can live there. If you're a scientist, you can move there for, I think, a period of 5 years, but then after that, you have to leave. You can't just set up there for the rest of your
Oh,
life.
well,
So,
there go my dreams.
yeah, exactly. So, so anyway, even the teachers at the school were contracted for a period of a few years, and then they would have to move and go somewhere else. And
I
so there
see.
was a constant rotation of
Yeah,
principals, administrators, and teachers in this school. But the children there are children who were born on Galapagos and whose families are entitled to live there. And so they can apply to go to that school for this environmental education program, which often leads to them having positions within the tourism industry or with the parks. Um, so, you know, they can, very, very knowledgeable people that become the guides for people like me.
nice. That's a really good system though.
Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah,
was really
wow,
remarkable.
indeed. This is my favorite question. In your opinion, which booby is truly the fashionable one, blue or red-footed?
I think Pierre is trying to make me laugh.
You succeeded.
Yes.
You definitely succeeded. Yeah.
Yeah, the one I like the best actually is the white morph of the red-footed.
Red-footed. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
my favorite also.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because
But
we get them in here in Tobago.
okay, yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the blue-footed boobies are really remarkable as well. That you know, just watching them raising their feet up, you know, and having that blue reflection on their bellies is just
Yeah.
a gorgeous thing to see.
Interestingly enough, the whole word that the root word means stupid, right? Or foolish
Okay, yeah,
for booby, right?
yeah.
Um, but it was something to do with them being approachable and them being so tame. And it just got me thinking, it's like, wow, for an animal to be trusting of humans, then that would then result in it being called foolish.
Oh, possibly. Yeah,
There's a lot, right?
pretty good. Yeah.
It,
You
it,
know, this whole word tame, though, I would not ever describe any of the birds or animals that I saw in Galapagos as tame, but just that they were unafraid of people.
yeah,
Yeah,
approachable.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's probably one of the places in the world where um, you are most able to get up really close to wildlife.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Of course. Um, oh yeah, one more question. Where is Derek? Derek is asleep right now. It is probably one or like I think about 2 in the morning in South Africa. So
Yeah, yeah.
unfortunately, you gotta deal with me at these time zones.
But he saw the presentation when I did it earlier, like last winter. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yo, I think we've gotten through all of the questions. I'm sorry if I missed any in the chat. Um, a lot of kudos to you, Elizabeth, for this wonderful presentation.
Well,
Um,
it's been fun giving it. Yeah. So I really enjoy sharing my travels. So yeah,
yeah,
thanks a lot for having me.
you're welcome. Thank you. It was a nice virtual journey to the Galapagos. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, thanks, Elizabeth, and thank you everyone for coming. And also, just a reminder, we have a webinar coming up on Thursday. That's on lovebirds, I believe. And on Friday, I'm going to be chatting with Georgina Statler, who's an award-winning photographer from Australia. And that's going to be a lot of fun. So hope to see some of you guys there. And yeah, so that's it from me here in hot Trinidad and Tobago. And thank you everyone again. And take care. Have a lovely night.
Good to see you again, Faraz. Good
All
night.
right. Cheers. Take care.